Good morning, everybody. Thank you for being here. We're going to get started in a couple, just a minute or two, allow some other people to get on as we go through this discussion on flex parking. All right, we're going to get started. Again, appreciate everybody being on this morning, 8 a.m. to discuss the potential for removal of flex parking along Milburn Avenue. With me today is Christine Bugle, the township's assistant engineer. She's been involved in this project in the past. As many of you recall, back in 2018, the township had made an attempt to remove flex parking through the bidding process. That did not pan out. The bidding process resulted in a disqualified bid as well as a bid that was well over the engineer's estimate. So the discussion has come back up to potentially remove flex parking over the summer. But sort of step one in that was to make sure that we reached out on the project and heard from the merchants in particular and residents in that area. And then we will also cast a wider net, to have this discussion further. So simply put, and I want to just be clear that we're going to briefly go through the project. Christine and I are not making any sort of suppositions about where the project's going, but we just want to provide information and hear from all of you. So our introduction of it will be brief, and we want to open it up to comment, questions, and any other sort of input from those that are on this call. So the removal of flex parking is the raised area from Dunkin' Donuts to Starbucks and from Design Hub to Häagen-Dazs that was installed during the 2016 Complete Streets project, in which it's a raised parking surface and is approximately 9 feet wide from the basalt pavers, the darker pavers that you see on the street there, to the white line that starts getting into the travel lane. This is projected to be a 3 to 4 week project. We are looking at it from it's pretty much the large part of it is the removal of the concrete, but there are other elements to it, the installation of a curb, the transition of certain stormwater inlets back to where they were along the curb, and other work. Now, the committee has discussed this briefly twice over the last few weeks to bring it to the attention that this was starting to be thought about, and this public information session is meant to offer an opportunity to everybody to weigh in on that. In terms of other elements of the project that I've heard or been asked, would this project return the right-hand turn lane? The answer to that is no, it is not intended to return the right-hand turn lane on Milburn Avenue. Would this result in the removal of the bollards? Yes, it would, because we'd be going back to a traditional curb parking. and a traditional parallel parking. And, that is the overall project. Now, back when it was bid in 2018, there was an alternate to provide for night work, that the work would be done from 9 p.m. to 5 a.m. And so that, is also a possibility and potential here, and providing that alternate in the bid specs. We, as I stated before, we have the bid specifications from 2018, and not much in terms of right now where we're at, and just looking at this would change from those bid specifications. Christine, I don't know if you have anything else to add to the specifics of the project itself, but again, just want to be clear that we want to get through this sort of introduction and be able to open it up and hear from everybody. This is being recorded, and we are going to be taking notes, and we're going to provide an email address that if there are others that weren't able to make this, they can certainly email us and let us know what their thoughts are. And I'll give that to everybody right now. That email address is letusknow@millburntwp.org. Again, that's letusnknow@millburntwp.org. Christine, do you have anything to add?
No, I think you were pretty clear in the description of the scope of work and all the items that would be included.
Okay, and so we're going to answer any questions that we possibly can. Christine's here for some technical backup, and I certainly have a sense of process of how it would all kind of look, but really just want to hear from everybody on this call. So at this time, we are going to open it up to comments, questions, concerns, anything that anybody wants to provide. So if you want to speak, please just raise your hand, and we'll call on you and hear from you. Vicki?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, Vicki Powell, Shala in downtown Millburn. I just have to say a couple things. We just find this idea still going through COVID, have not gotten out of COVID, still does not have the same people coming into town, the same merchants, how tone deaf the township committee is to the merchants in the downtown. It's not going to only affect this small area, it's going to affect Essex Street, it's going to affect Main Street, it's going to affect Upper Millburn Avenue with the disruption of traffic of this construction process. You say it's going to be 3 to 4 weeks, but we all know that construction always goes over. So it's ridiculous to me that we're going to be even thinking about this, why the merchants are going through such trauma going through COVID. It's just unfathomable that you guys are not even considering what we are going through and continue. We're going to have construction at Wells Fargo. There's potential of other construction in the downtown, and you want to rip up the streets. You're going to do it at night. What about all the residents that live there? And then there's no parking during the day. The theme that we heard while Complete Streets was going is, when you do construction, people are going to find alternative routes. Well, that alternative routes to other towns, and then they're going to all disappear from us again. We finally, after 4 years of Complete Streets, have gotten people to come back into town, and now you're sending them out away again. And it's just very, very disconcerting that this is going on and even thought about. You're all saying that people can't park on it. Well, it's parked. They're parking on it. You can come down on Saturday and see it's a line of people. Oh, people are off the side of it. Well, if you go to the parking lot behind me, you can see people in regular parking spots not parking straight. It was designed to be to use it for parklets, for restaurant dining. Why don't we use that for that purpose? Why don't we have some parklets? Or better yet, why don't we move the bollards back? Have we tried that? We only tried it at one portion of Millburn Avenue to move the bollards and put those planters. And people parked, they were able to get onto the flex parking and park without leaning over the side. We're not trying the alternatives. We're just going with the rip it all out and let's start over. But you know, it's going to be at the detriment of us merchants. And that's really not fair to us. We can't, how many more digs do we have to have? You know, who's going to be paying my rent? Who's going to be paying my bills? I just don't think you guys are thinking this through. We can utilize this to a better way than just ripping it all up. It's very sad that this is going on, and no thought to the merchants, none whatsoever.
Okay.
That's what to say.
All right. Thank you, Vicky. I appreciate those comments. Nadej?
Hi, Alex.
Morning.
Hi, everyone. I think this part of Milburn Avenue that you were describing where the work would happen, to me, is the only part of town that is actually pedestrian friendly and that I consider being finished. I'm not for it at all. I don't understand. I can't see any pros to doing this. It looks nice as it is. Yes, some people don't park right on it, but guess what? Some people don't park right on any spot in front of my store. Some people are not parked straight, park over two spots. I don't think that the issue is that it is raised. I think anyone who has the driver's license can park on that. But I see a lot of cons. The impact on businesses, like Vicky said, is going to be enormous. Even if you do the work at night, it's going to impact the restaurant because I never find the parking being an issue in our town, but past 6 o'clock when everybody comes out to eat, especially in the summer, that's where it's very hard to find a parking spot. If you take this entire part of the town as not able to park, I think restaurants are the ones who are going to be really suffering. I agree that there are 3 or 4 weeks of work is probably going to turn into 7 or 8. I just don't understand what we're trying to achieve. I do think that the parklet, if they were used like I think last year, Dunkin' Donuts was using them, putting tables, I think it makes the town even more pedestrian friendly. You really want to go out, people are sitting outside. And I think if we were using them for that, they should definitely stay. I'm not a fan of the bollards because once you park, you don't really see them. And I think removing this and putting beautiful planters instead would be much cheaper, much faster, more efficient, and it would make it even more beautiful. So all in all, I'm really against it. If I had a say, I don't think we should do this at all.
Thank you, Nadej. Appreciate your comments.
Thank you.
Mr. Footer.
Good morning.
Morning.
I have to agree. I think Vicky was spot on with her statement. If there's any construction to be done, which I would not do now, it's scaling back those bump outs, especially the big one. But I have to tell you, I think Milburn Township should leave business alone. There is absolutely no way, or it's very difficult, to attract new commercial tenants to town when it is always up in the air, when that construction may be coming. No business wants to open up and spend a fortune of money with the prospect that here they come again. It seems that for the past 10 to 15 years, there has been one project after another, whether it be the utilities digging up the streets, a parking deck going in, a Milburn Avenue bridge being reconstructed, complete streets going on. Business and property owners have not been afforded the breather in between to try and get into a healthy position to withstand yet another episode. And that's where I think the biggest problem is. So if there is a push on the township committee, whether it be through a SID or other vehicles, to help business and property owners. Let them help themselves. Let them have a breather, get some health under their belts before you start talking about this. Because between this, the vision plan, and anything else that's coming up, you're warding off potential new tenants coming in, because who is going to open up a business, put in that kind of money with the prospect of being shut down? It just doesn't make sense. That's my feeling. And I have to tell you, I think something else is afoot politically, and I'm not taking any snipes. It's just an observation. Most, if not all, of the township committee was voted in because of the disaster with Complete Streets. And once they got in, they were chastised by different factions for not doing anything to mitigate or reverse the effects of Complete Streets. I suspect that it might be helpful, and they might be looking for either go ahead and rip it out, or as a community, we don't want any more construction paid attention to that, move on. I think it would be easier and would take the heat off of the township committee to make the decision to just leave it and not put business through another adverse circumstance. And they'd be able to do it without having to say, okay, it's our decision, and getting criticized for not doing it. That's just my observation.
Okay, appreciate that, Richard. Thanks for your comments. So just to weigh in a little bit on some things so far. I think that the driving force behind this is the same as it was in 2018, and so I certainly understand what everybody's saying, but want to make sure that this is one of those pieces of the Complete Streets project. While I know there's several different things, but this is one of those that has been sort of a consistent, again, which is why we want to hear from the merchants and the business owners in the area and the property owners. But it's been one of those, consistent points of consternation in terms of that project. So I just, again, it was spoken about in 2018. The ability to get out the bid and do the construction failed, but and I think that that is some of the impetus behind this, and certainly, but also why we're here to hear from everybody. So I will move on to Ramon. Ramon, you're on. If you want to say something, I can come back to you too. Oh, there you go.
Hi, Alex. This is Ramon Ibrahim. I'm the owner of Avalon Salon on Roxy Shoes. Roxy Shoes, we picked up Roxy Shoes was the business suffering during the first construction of 2016. So the owner was want to kind of leave it. That was outcome of a construction job. So I decided not to have an empty store right next to me, or they bring in a restaurant gonna damage my business. So I kind of picked up the store and I bought her over from the existing business owners, Roseanne. The reason I bought that business, because the construction put her out of business. And we passed it on and we went on, and came 2018, the new committee, 2016 came in, 2017, 2018, you guys approved the project. You get the golden opportunity to do it while we were in COVID time. A whole year, right from March 2020 straight up to June 2020, we were closed 4 months. Construction could have done there, and we came back and we find that the town is done. No one was in the town at that time, between restaurant, businesses, surface, residential, no one was there. I don't know if you guys willing to take a big step like that. Why you didn't take that big step while we were nobody there? That is number one. Number two, it is no need for this now. People were so happy to come out of their home after they being hostage in the woods for 1 year, scared at a pandemic. Now the time they just starting coming out and they forget about how bad the word was about Melbourne Township in terms of not traffic friendly and not resident residential friendly or pedestrian friendly. It was a lot of word and tab in Melbourne and all over the internet, all over the downtown, how awful downtown Melbourne is. We shot ourselves with our own gun because 2016, it was awful construction. And everybody started talking so bad about that town. No one want to be around Melbourne downtown anymore in 2017 and 2018. Then we make it through and people start forgot about it by the noise of the pandemic. So everyone was home. People was so happy coming back again. Now we're making the noise of the town not friendly to these people, the town not be able to bark again. People were so happy to come out of the house after 1 year. There's no needed to any interruption to our business or even to the downtown. If you want to do something, decide to take the part not even being done, you know, and go take care of that part first. And later on, we can figure out what happened with that one if people start complaining again. But this part of the town, the most beat up part, every time any committee coming in new, they have to beat that part to death. I don't understand it why. You have the other side of Melbourne Avenue, like you're walking toward the high school. It's no sidewalk there. People want to go watch the 4th of July like last year or the year before. You can't even find a sidewalk there. Build a sidewalk in that side, continue all the way down to the high school area or the other street of that. And instead, if you beat that side to death. So I have no idea how you guys thinking about this, but I think you need to add a little bit more of business-minded, oriented into the township committee so we can be able to move on. You know, I see no reason for any interruption because people, it just start coming back to the downtown. We just start to see a traffic back. You just start making money for your meters, parking lot. If you really wanted to do it, pick a better time. It was COVID time, not right now. You know, all the businesses, everybody like in my shoes, they owning data now. Everybody owning 4 to 5 months under landlord. You know what? You're having extra money, bail out those landlords so they can bail us out too. But instead, if you're digging it out, for who's taking this money? Contractor gonna be taking that kind of money and we're gonna be out of business. This is not fair at all, to any kind of thinking. We just suffering out of the pandemic and you put us out of business right after that. I have no idea how you guys thinking, and you have a lot of part of the town. People can even walk. If somebody walking toward the high school, from the downtown going toward the high school, is gonna trip 1,000 times on this sidewalk. And you getting brand new concrete, you wanna dig it out. I have no idea why you don't just taking care of the bad side of the town. And when you start seeing people complain again about that, maybe you can think it over. But so far, no one of my clients complained a single time. So I'm out. Thank you so much. Can agree more with Vicky and Najat and Fodder and everybody else.
All right. Thank you, Ramon. Appreciate your comments. Janine.
Good morning, Alex. Good
Morning.
Dean. How are you all? Alex, without beating a dead horse, I am totally against ripping this out. I think this idea should be shelved for the next 5 to 10 years. Look at it 10 years down the line. I have a quick question. Where would money come from to actually do this if you guys were doing this?
Sure. This would be financed through the capital budget.
capital budget of Milburn?
Of the township, correct.
Okay, so I really, number one, disagree in ripping the whole sidewalks out. I agree with everybody. We've been hit over the head between complete streets, construction, which I think went, terribly wrong. How they did it was like a war zone. We lost a lot of people at that time, a lot of customers. We are just seeing, and a lot of customers won't come back. They say, oh, now it's easier to go to Summit, or it's easier, I live closer to Maplewood, so I'm going in that direction. We're just starting to get customers back. And I agree with everybody, Mr. Footer, that every so often they look at our town like it's under construction. We're doing this and that. And I understand it's an old town. You have to accommodate for, the increase in residents, the increase in just population, drive-through traffic. But to do this at this time, as everybody said, coming out of COVID, which we just spent, 4 months putting all our money back into our businesses, now to shut us down. And as people said, construction goes longer. They say 3 to 4 weeks, it's going to be double or triple that time. I can't see how this would benefit any tenant, any resident, or any landowner doing this. And I feel like, I'm sure there's better use of this money in the town. There are, like Ramon mentioned, other areas of town that could probably benefit from just a little cosmetic makeover. Essex Street, maybe their sidewalks are a little bumpy over there. Planters, we really could use this money, I think, in other places. The parklets should come back. That brings people into town. The music that we have when we cut off the streets where Main Street looks lively, we need to do things with that money to bring people downtown and not push them away from town and in other directions going into other towns. I also think doing this, you're going to get a big upheaval from the residents again, because I think they were, as what I heard from my customers, they were blindsided by the non-transparency of complete streets. And then after that, their whole taxes got increased. So, they look at us like we initiated this project. The tenants of, the business owners that were in that section, like we voted for this, we were behind it. And, we got upheaval from all of our customers. I had one customer come in and she said, well, they want to make it, why are they doing this? And I said, oh, that, it's pedestrian friendly. And she said to me, oh, so now we walk? I mean, this is clearly a lady that wants to pull up, in her Mercedes or BMW, park right in front of my store. And she couldn't even get to my store one day because of all the utilities that she lives in the South Mountain District. They were doing construction down there at the same time that we were doing complete streets. She was so frustrated. And then she asked what the granite benches were for. And I said, well, they're for sitting. And she said, okay, we walk and now we sit. And I had to laugh. I mean, she didn't think those granite benches were actually quote unquote benches where she said we could have used the money just for park benches with slats that, rain, water, snow could go through. They could be easily washed off. They weren't heated. Summer wasn't baking them. The birds weren't pooping on them, but
right.
This is the kind of flack that you get. I mean, that my desk looks out that window. I have a utility pole in front of my store. I have a new light pole in front of my store and bollards. And when I look at people, which I watched yesterday, someone not parking up, they're scared to hit, and I've seen at least 6 hit those bollards. And I'm wondering, when you go into the tunnels in New York, they have those rubber things, that bollards that, separate the lanes. I don't understand why we can't do something that's a little flexible like that could still be maybe moved about, but if you hit them, they kind of, knock over. You would know you were hitting something, so you were, you were not parking correctly, but wouldn't damage the car. That's a big thing for people parking up there is they park far away. They don't want to hit their car.
Mhm.
Planters, again, if we're doing planters, there's no reason to do plastic planters, that they would have an easier time and maybe do some kind of plants that were taller, because a lot of the people can't see the level of those bollards. My other thing is, I see the people most having problems are in bigger cars, because the people that can pull right up into them and not kind of backing into a parallel space have a hard time. I'm wondering, and I know this would be a hard thing to do, but why couldn't those just be designated for compact cars? Why couldn't we eliminate, say, if you have a pickup, you can't park there. If you have a gigantic SUV, compact car spaces would be easier to just maneuver in and out, or a typical sedan instead of a bigger SUV. I don't know how that would, actually be implemented, but certainly I think that would take away, from those bigger cars leaning out into the actual, street part, which then, has a hard time.
Right.
I just want to say I'm against it. I am shelf it for the next 10 years. So we, the merchants that are there right now, don't have to deal with it. Use the money for some kind of beautification in some other part of town that can be done quickly, easily, a refresh of sidewalks, more park benches. As Ramon said, other sidewalk fixtures, planters, plastic bollards. That's all. It can't be done right now. It just can't. We'll go out of business. We all survived, it's like one thing after another. If you've been in this town as long as I have, we had Irene, we had Sandy, we had construction, we had the parking garage, we had the bridges closing down. It's like, how much more can residents, long-term residents and landowners, landlords take in this town? We can't, there's no way we can go forward. So thank you.
Yeah.
And I hope that you all keep us posted on this, because it just can't, at night, 3 weeks, no time.
Janine, appreciate your comments, and certainly, again, the goal here is to make sure that we are keeping everybody informed. We had walked to hand out flyers to those that were in their stores to make sure that there was personal notification of this meeting, so that we could speak to those on the that may potentially be impacted. So appreciate your comments, Janine. Jumana.
Good morning, everybody. Hi, Alex. Thank you for putting on this webinar for everybody so we can hear about this before it happens. And I appreciate everybody's comments before. And I just, again, not going to repeat what everybody else has said, but I'm basically on the same page as all the other comments that came before me. Also wanted to say, like Nadej, I also think that stretch of town is some of the prettiest part of Milburn Ave, and is pedestrian friendly, which to me is very important, having had a child who was hit by a car in Milburn Township. So I appreciate that the township did put pedestrians first. Personally, I think people have gotten used to the flex parking. I'm talking as a resident as well as a shop owner. I would like if you guys could maybe think about using that money to maybe readdress the bollards, or maybe, something like that. I know you guys are already looking at planters all of those things are great. I just don't think ripping them out is money well spent. I would rather, again, see the stretch of block where my store is located maybe addressed right now. Those sidewalks are in really poor condition. There are 3 lanes of traffic that just go racing, through town. You take your life in your hands if you want to cross from where I'm located to, let's say, the deli, which I, do to get lunch frequently. And it's really, really dangerous. So again, thank you for putting on this meeting. And I hope that the township will reconsider ripping up flex parking.
Okay. Thank you, Jemima. Appreciate the comments. Jody?
Good morning. It feels a little bit like Groundhog Day. I'm not a downtown merchant, although I'm a downtown business owner, so I don't have foot traffic in my law office. But it feels like Groundhog Day having this discussion because I was on the township committee when the flex parking was installed, and I was there to hear complaints. You use the word consternation, but it's been 4 years. I'm really not sure what more recent comments you've had or how that affected businesses any more than it did. But what I did know when I was on the township committee, the merchants weren't heard. There wasn't an effort to speak to the merchants. There wasn't, and it was my first year on the committee, and I wish I knew more about how important it was to go to the merchants and find out what they wanted instead of just jamming things down their throats. The people in the town itself, they don't really weigh in until after the fact. But when you say the word complete streets, even calling it that is still not fair because nobody ever let us complete the whole project. So when certain people came onto the township committee who aren't even there anymore, who didn't, finish their term as mayor and didn't even stay on, their platforms and others were to rip out the curb, less concrete, more street, things like that. But as Ramon said, that didn't even happen during their tenure. So when I was there was an effort to talk about ripping out the streets. And then the TV came and did a piece on us that kind of said, look at this town. They spent this much money and now they're going to spend this much money to rip it out. The optics of it, and even worse during COVID, do we really just have extra money to throw around that we're going to rip up something that people have gotten used to? I know that I spoke years ago to Christine and you, and there were middle of the road options like the rubber bollards, even a valet. If somebody's going to come in during this, is there going to be a valet behind the movie theater to take all the parking, or something directed behind Spring Street to make sure there's an alternative? I actually asked you at some point whether either ripping out the spots completely and having another place to park would be cheaper than actually doing this to the town. Something else I think Vicky mentioned was we really didn't take the advantage of removing the bollards. Even when there was a parade, we didn't always remove them. So people didn't really get to see how it worked. What I have noticed now that they've completed now that they're blocking off Main Street, is they're using some barriers, and people are still seeing them and obeying them. And I don't think anybody's got hurt by them. So trying barriers or less expensive options as well might help. What about just how you're doing things on weekdays? What if only on the weekends there was, you try no parking and see if there's any difference, but try other alternatives. The optics of it is very confusing to me because I've been on both sides of it. So I'm concerned. I actually am concerned about where this is coming from. You said consternation. At one point, when they were going to do this last time, there was a survey that went around, and I think there was handwritten forms, and I'm not sure how many people, but the merchants you're listening to today that are on the ground that are telling you that their customers didn't like it or that their customers won't like it are the most important voices this committee should hear. And I guess what I can see now that I've stepped off the committee is that you really, really have to listen. And it's gotten even worse in the Zoom age because it feels like they speak just to speak, but then they're not really listening. So I'm glad that you want to hear the merchants' voices, the business owners' voices, but I want to hear that you actually are considering what they say and taking it serious. But the optics of spending the money now to rip out what we haven't, had such a problem with just seems interesting. I'd rather see the money spent to finish more safety issues on Upper Milburn Avenue where there are trip hazards and there are other issues than do this. So that's my feeling. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Jody. Appreciate your comments. And just to clarify a bit on, when I say consternation about this particular portion of the project that was done in 2016, is just that this is the one thing that I think has continued to, foster some conversation. And I won't go so far as, I've heard all of this or I've heard all of that, and I can't speak for the township committee and the things that they've heard. But I think that's just, again, where that comment came from, just so that everybody understands. Nancy?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Alex, I feel for you. Always do, I'm a big cheerleader of yours. Well, this week started Monday with the zoning board, a few hours. Tuesday night was the TC meeting for 3 hours. Then Wednesday was the planning board meeting. Then yesterday, clearly, the SID meeting, and now I'm up for this. So to say that I'm not passionate about Millburn, involved or interested, would be an understatement. I've spent over 15 to 20 hours this week, especially being under the weather because of my COVID reaction to the vaccine. It was really bad. But I'm back and I'm here, and I always show up for what's important, especially to the Millburn business community that David and I are so passionate and involved in. So I want to be supportive of the fellow merchants on Millburn Avenue, that I do not think it's a good idea to do construction at a time when the summer is coming, I agree with Ramon that this could have been done in March, April, May, but I know that I understand how the town works with the approvals and all that, but they seem to do whatever they want anyway. I want to echo Richard Footer's remarks that, not to be accusational, but the members of the TC did run on fixing what the mistakes of the previous administrations were, and the mistakes that were made during Complete Streets, which I was very big proponent of. I supported the project. I thought it was a great idea. On paper, it looked great. But what I'm finding now is the same dog and pony show that we're having with the vision plan and what's happening in different parts of the town, where they present this beautiful, utopian view of what our town could be. And then the result is never ultimately what the plan was intended to be. And all this money is spent irresponsibly, especially during COVID, when the business community has struggled. We've managed to pay our rent in full every month, and we've managed to stay in business, not to the dependence of the township or help or anything, although we did appreciate the few masks that you passed out when you came in and visited us. But, the TC also stands for town construction. We are constantly just hammered with construction, and there's other areas, even with my other shop by Footnotes. I was walking from Footnotes back to my store on Essex Street, and the sidewalks there are just an embarrassment for a town of this affluence and this type of money, that, because sometimes I'll walk back and forth to the store just to, it's a nice day. And what I see is just so disheartening, because the rest of the town was just never, ever finished. And now that it's an election year, everybody, they're giving us this time, and I believe we're wasting our time, because they're going to do whatever they want anyway, because that's how this TC rolls. They don't listen to the community. They don't listen to the merchants, and they'll just do whatever they want to ram down our throats. And I do appreciate your efforts, giving us the opportunity to speak, especially I've heard more than people speak more than 3 minutes. So, we started with the donation of the clock to the town. We wanted the beautification of the town. We were very proud of being part of the Millburn business community and continue to be proud of it. I shop in town, I eat in town. I'm having a sleepover with my grandson on May 15th So I'll be marching him around town, ice cream or, Oscars for lunch and that drink maybe later at Moonshine. And all the old favorites. And I do go to the Standard as well. I think they were an incredible addition to the community, and rightfully so. And I do think that that Main Street closure is beautiful and wonderful, but I think the money could be spent. I mean, those orange guards that you use are just an eyesore. It's not pretty. Things could be done. And I'm very good with, visual. It's very important to have beautiful visual optics for people to want to come downtown and shop. But we don't depend on the TC to make my business. We don't depend on you to make, it's up to me and David. It's our responsibility for our businesses. But when it's hampered by these decisions that the town council makes, or really town construction, Millburn Town Construction is really what it should be called, because we're constantly bombarded for years and years between the bridge, between the Riverwalk, between, there's always some way of having to navigate Millburn to get to where you want to go. And yet after 30 years, being in the courtyard for a few years and then moving over to Essex Street, we managed to survive, and proudly so. So I would really, in closing, would hope that they look at the alternatives that Jody suggested. I was very happy to hear Jody's voice and her input, and in support of the people that are actually on Millburn Avenue. I hope that they make the decision to spend the money in different ways, since clearly you do have the money, and but to spend this kind of time and effort, it's because we care. And I do believe it was not a political year, this would not be a conversation. So love you guys, and thank you for your service, Alex. You work really hard, and I do appreciate your effort. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Nancy. Appreciate your comments and input on this. So right now we have a bunch of people with hands raised that have already spoken. I don't know if that's because your hand didn't lower or you have additional things to say, but I would just like to ask if there's anybody else that has something that they would like to add before I go back to those individuals that have already spoken. Please raise your hand. Okay, great. Jumana?
Hi, was my hand up again? Sorry.
Yes, it was, yeah.
Oh, I didn't mean to do that. You
Okay.
Sorry.
All right. No problem.
Okay. Bye-bye.
All right, Nadej, you also have your hand raised. Not sure if you have something additional to say. Richard and Vicky. Vicky just raised her hand, so I'll call on her. Vicky?
Yeah, sorry. I'm very passionate about what I was saying, so I didn't really get to a couple of the other points, but I do have a question. So when you're potentially going to be removing these flex parking spaces, they're concrete. So you have to, if I'm not mistaken, jackhammer them up. Is that correct?
That is correct. The concrete there is reinforced concrete. So it has rebar in it. It would need to be jackhammered, which is why, again, the conversation just initially was about whether there's a particular time of year, but certainly, a particular time of day that makes more sense to go through this construction process, and whether, you how you split it up and things like that. These are all things that would, if it was decided to move forward, would have to be taken into a great deal of considerations. But yes, to answer your question, yeah, it would have to be jackhammered.
Yeah. So potential, for particularly my business, I have to remove everything off my shelves, everything, because I have the potential of everything being, damaged in my business from the vibrations of the potential jackhammering. So again, that means that I have to be closed for business because no one can walk in my business if any of all my stuff is on the floor and not on their shelves where it's supposed to be. That's one of the other questions I was concerned about, because it's just really poor timing. And it's just, and then if you're going to do this construction, so now you're going to have people coming through town with this. Are you going to leave Main Street closed? So then that's going to be another further backup of traffic into town. So are you going to leave the Main Street Plaza open or closed? So then we're going to have more backup of traffic because of the construction and also Main Street. So what are your plans for that? Are you going to close, you're going to open Main Street and then the plaza is not going to be used like it's supposed to?
Yeah, so I think that's a really good question, Vicky. And I think that would have to be heavily considered with any potential, because in the way that this construction would work would be that one lane would be closed during that to be able to remove the parking. So yeah, certainly Main Street would have to be factored into, and whether that would remain closed or not. But it's a really good point. Yep. All
right. And then my last thing is, I've had my business in town for 36 years. Actually, my mother's business in town for 36 years. Mm-hmm. It would be nice that these township committee, we're taxpayers too. We might not be big taxpayers, but we're still taxpayers. We're still constituents. But it would be nice if the township committee, maybe instead of sitting up there, to come in and talk to us. I've had one township committee member come in and speak to us. Another township committee member, I actually grabbed when she was walking in a parade because she asked me how I was doing, and I told her how I was doing. It would be nice, get your boots on the ground and talk to us. It's all good that you're making decisions for us, but why don't you get to know? Because there's some people that don't feel comfortable being on a Zoom. There's some people that don't, the township committee they've already made their decision. They don't care about us. Well, that's what it sounds like. I mean, this is great, but not everyone's going to be able to get on here at 8 o'clock to speak or feel comfortable getting up here and speaking. But it would be nice, why don't you come in and see us? Because I've yet to see any of these townships step foot in my business except one. And I've been in town for 36 years. So it's really sad that they're not even considering us or even talking to us and getting our opinions on anything. We have to do this because they just don't want to do it. It's just not good. It really isn't. I'm sorry. All right, that's it. Thank you, Alex.
Thanks, Vicky.
All right.
All right, so we are coming up on an hour here. I do want to get to anybody else that wants to speak. We have 3 right now. If you could just limit your comments just to with some brevity, then we can make sure that we stick to this. Again, for those that would like to provide any additional feedback, you can email us let us know at milburntwp.org. Certainly please feel free to weigh in there as well. Nadej.
Hi there. Yeah, just very quickly, I have one comment and one question. Mm-hmm. So the one thing that I don't agree with is everybody says we should revisit this in a few years. I really think that this part of town is the prettiest and it does not need any touching. So I don't think this should be revisited. It should be left alone. But my question to you, Alex, and I don't know that you can answer it now, but you were talking about consternation. I fail to understand what prompted this need to remove the flex parking. What's the main issue? Where does it come from? What's the complaint? I don't get it.
Yeah, and we can certainly offer some insight in that, but I think again from it also the township committee and what they've heard and stuff like that. I can't speak to that, but I know that this has been the one part of that project that has been consistent, and whether it's loud now or not, I don't necessarily know. I mean, that's why, again, part of this meeting is to say, all right, what have the individuals that are on that part of the street, what are they feeling? What are they hearing from their patrons and things like that? But it is the one part of the project that has consistently, received bad reviews, so to speak. So that's probably as far as I can go with it. But that is the impetus.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Ramon?
Hi, Alex. I was actually gonna ask the same question Najat asked you. If this is the purpose of it, people complaining because it's parking, forget about parking. Just put this collar up and make the sidewalk just for people to walk on it and build the parking deck behind Dunkin' Donuts. At least we adding an addition to the township, and instead of we spending money to dig out other things. At the first project, they came and stopped to us and they showed it to us. At that time, the township committee were adding the stuff. I remember it clear. Bunch of the township committee at that time while Judy was on, they came over to my salon and they asked about their opinion. I said, listen, it looked beautiful, it looked pretty, and you know what? If you're beautifying the township, we're with you in. That was my comment at the first time when they did the construction, because they're adding something to make the township look more friendly, more professional, more pretty. And honestly, it is the best part of the town. All of us have our own mind and our own vision and our own personal views. This is the best part of Melbourne Township. So I don't understand why, because it's the best part of Melbourne Township, now it needs to get digged out. Maybe you can add an addition. We will suck it up if you said we're gonna build what do you call it? Have you ever thought of this? You have a parking problem. You have a big place between the township and Dunkin' Donuts. Go build a little, parking deck, 3 floors, look like a school plaza across the street from you. And you know what? It's gonna open more shopper and close this parking. We didn't need it. We need people to walk on. If this is the bothering people to park on it.
Okay.
It's another thing. I'm sorry.
No,
but thank you so much for your help, Alex.
That's okay.
You guys did amazing.
Thank you. Tara? Tara, do you want me to? Tara?
No, Alex, I'm all good. I didn't mean to raise my hand. I'm just here.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Richard?
Yes, thank you, Alex. I'll be brief. I'm glad I was at this info session. After hearing all of these comments, it seems to me that the boldest move for the betterment of business and property owners at this time is to do nothing. To do nothing is actually doing more than ripping out what's there. What it will do to business and property owners' ability to rent by ripping it out is just following bad. So taking that one step further, I wouldn't do anything as far as the flex parking goes at this time, but I would go as far as to have a moratorium on any projects, sizable projects in the downtown. I, for one, can personally attest, I've had several prospective tenants ask me if there's going to be more construction. I will not lie to somebody, and if I don't have an answer, I'm going to just tell them I don't know. I know that I sent them to town hall to ask the question, and the best answer that they got was not at this time. Now, one of my spaces is sizable. It's going to be an investment to open a business. Nobody's going to want to open a business and dump that money in only to know that they're going to be shut down or to have an answer not at this time. There should be a moratorium on any of this. Business needs to get healthy. I know it sounds repetitive, but they need to get healthy. The existing businesses that are there, they're going to come out of this. If they're left alone to do it, They're experienced, they're veterans, but you need to get a better mix of goods and services in the downtown. And it's going to be very difficult for any vehicle to attract those businesses with the aura of being shut down for any period of time. So that's my suggestion. I know it's a bold move. It may not be an easy move, but really at this time, doing nothing is doing a lot more.
Okay.
Thank you and have
Great.
a good day.
Thank you, Richard.
You're welcome.
Okay, so we're going to take 5 more minutes here. We've got two additional comments from people who have already commented. Again, if anybody who hasn't commented would like to comment, I would like to hear from you. But we'll take another 5 minutes here to have these last 2 individuals speak. Nancy.
Hi, Alex. I want to thank you for giving us the opportunity to speak uninterrupted and in not a hostile environment, which is what the TC meetings have been for the last year, more so, but specifically the last year and very specifically the last few months. And this is the type of calm, nurturing forum that we need in the township to be able to express ourselves without being cut off if we are in opposition with this TC. And those decisions will be made obviously in November again. And unfortunately, we do not have the opportunity at the TC meeting. So I just wanted to say thank you for giving us the opportunity, for not being rude, for not cutting us off. And the fact that Tara is on this call and did not comment as a merchant, which is how she ran, is really shameful. So I did want to get that in, because for her to be listening to all of us and not speaking up as a merchant with her door open, which is how she ran, that was really good. So I really thank you for unmuting her. Take care, Alex. Love you.
All right. So just, again, and I want to be very clear that we have the luxury in this format to be able to hear from everybody and not have people timed and things like that, because this is the whole purpose of this, is to be able to, and the reason that we're getting out above and beyond the township committee meeting is to hear from people, and I just do want to be clear that the township committee meetings have to run a business meeting, which involves a lot of different elements and resolutions and ordinance. I just want to be clear on that. And I'm happy to do this and happy to have these opportunities because I think it is important, but just want everybody to understand that. Carrie. Carrie. All right. So everybody at this point has, we got time for one more. I'm gonna lower everybody's hand one more time. If you do wish to speak, please raise your hand. We are going to take 5 more, or just a few more minutes, and I'll try to let Carrie in here one more time. Carrie? For some reason, we're not able to hear you, Carrie. Okay. All right. So look, we're gonna wrap up there. Jody, if you can keep your comments to a minute and on the subject, that would be great. Thank you.
No problem. Actually, Nancy took a lot of the words out of my mouth. One of the benefits I've learned during COVID, actually, surprisingly, is that some of these online forums can make it broader for people to speak. And as Nancy said, or actually, as Vicky said earlier, some merchants don't feel comfortable speaking. I actually had somebody at a nail salon recently say she didn't feel like they were going to listen anyway, so why even speak? But I hope that's not the case. But what was frustrating when I was on the committee, when we actually did have these outdoor at the deli sessions on Complete Streets, nobody really did come. So I'm hoping that with with this platform, you can have more sessions where hopefully more people can come. And I don't know if by putting it on one of your outside flashing signs for another session for people, but one of the most frustrating things of somebody who does do the work is it being on a committee is when people complain after the fact. So, you know, obviously if they didn't complain, you know, again, if they have a complaint, they have to weigh in. So I'm just hoping that you'll do that more often. Capitalizing on this way for more people to weigh in. And so I do really appreciate how receptive it was and how it seemed like everybody had a chance, and hopefully the committee will listen. My other comment is, I had no idea that the flex would look like this myself. I think that you really need, when you do something new, even if it's reverse angle parking, to kind of map it out and temporarily do it. So even if you're going to do reverse angle parking, could you tape it out for a little while before you spend the money on some of the things, or, you know, just try things out, which I think we rammed into that project and didn't try things out. So, or even try not parking on the flex parking on weekends, and, you know, or something, and have an alternate way where to park. Just try things out before we spend the money. And somebody mentioned Wells Fargo. If there's going to be more parking there and there's more options for retail parking, would just not having these spots as parking spots at all be an option? I don't know. I leave that for you, and thank all of you for all you do and the people that currently serve, because it's not easy to be up there. Most people complain after the fact. Right. So I appreciate all you do. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Jody. Okay, so yeah, and just to comment on what Jody said, we do plan on having another session. So, but this one was really geared toward the merchants and the residents on that particular part, and to the downtown community that would be impacted by it. But we do want to have a broader net cast, as I said at the beginning. And again, people can always provide their comments to us at let us know at millburntwp.org. So just really appreciate, we're gonna wrap up here. Wanted to keep it to about an hour. Really appreciate everybody's comments and participating in this. And you know, we will be in touch. We will continue to have information on the website. We'll continue to reach out on this particular subject. And I believe it'll continue to be spoken about at the township committee meetings, so that there's no so that the information is getting out there. But thank you all for your time this morning, and have a good rest of the day and a great weekend. Take care.